Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hi, I'm Jason, with Jason Pollock. I am not Jason. Join Jason and Justin back in the green room as they talk with some of their favorite folks from the entertainment industry. And now, the man you haven't been waiting for, Jason Pollock!
Hi, Justin. Oh, I got applause.
How you doing, Jason?
Great. I lost a friend today. I lost another friend last week. So it's going to be a good show. They would want me to
on an uptick.
They would want me to make jokes. Justin, I was just watching a documentary on Amazon Prime called Misery Loves Comedy. And I really connected with this show because everybody, it turns out, wow, I'm like stuttering. Okay, I can't even speak. Yeah, can we edit that in post?
Yeah, we're gonna take that out. Yeah, in the live show, sure.
It just reminded me of why hi Trenton in New Jersey.
Hey,
Good.
Trent,
Obviously, I'm a mess today, but yeah, listen. Why do I call the show Hi, I'm Jason? Because nobody freaking knows me, and we started the show. I thought, who's going to give a crap about what I say? Why are they going to listen to me? And a comic named Judah Friedlander said, well, call it Hi, I'm Jason. That way they know you. So there you go. Hi, I'm Jason. So now you can listen. And is there anything, do you need to do your housekeeping bit?
Let's do the housekeeping.
Let's do that.
Let's do it quick. We'll do it quick.
Let's do it real quick.
Okay, real quick. Here we go. Hello,
right,
folks. I'm Justin. I am not Jason, but I am here to just remind you all of how you can find out more about what it is that we are doing. So if you want to catch some of the finished products of what it is that we do, go on over to YouTube. And all you have to do is search, Hi, I'm Jason. And that'll take you over to our finished products. And at that point, click the subscribe button. So that way
we've got adult film stars, horror actors, New York Times best-selling authors.
Photojournalists that have...
photojournalists.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I love that one where he's just like, yeah, I remember that 3 days of me trying to nail down the Dalai Lama so that I could take his portrait. Like, goodness gracious.
I had to hold him down to get a picture physically.
So if you want to catch those out, oh, and we cannot forget about those beautiful, delicious Cenobites from Hell from Clive Barker's Hellraiser. We have a couple of shows with those guys, and hope that we can get them back soon. But if you want to check those out, pop on over to YouTube and just search Hi, I'm Jason. Also, if you're not already watching us over on Twitch like Trent is, pop on over to twitch.tv/Hi, I'm Jason P. That's for Hi, I'm Jason podcast. Twitch.tv/Hi, I'm Jason P.
And Big Gay Nick likes your wings, Justin.
Oh, oh, my little flyaways that I've got going on here.
Very
Yeah,
70s, very
yeah, well,
70s, 80s comedy.
I've got the crazy big hair going on right now.
I
That's
love
not
it.
being so tamed, so we figured we'll tame it with the flat cap. And it's good to see you, Big Gay Nick. It has been too long, sir. Too long indeed. So over on Twitch, my friends, and also if you want to know when we are doing anything, even our live performances, because Jason and I have been getting out and about as live performers, pop on over to facebook.com/Jason and Justin. That's where we disseminate all information and where you can find out about the silliness and insanity that we are getting into, including our upcoming shows. So again, facebook.com/Jason and Justin. And if you want to support what it is that we're doing, on Twitch they make it easy. You can subscribe to our page and you can become patrons of what it is that we do here. Also, if you are not watching on Twitch, though, and you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Facebook, you can visit our digital tip jar by going to Venmo. All you have to do is search @ Jason-Pollock-2. And again, all of your contributions go to making this show better and better. And as far as the quality and equipment that we have, it helps make sure that Jason's Wi-Fi stays on so that we can see his gorgeous face. And on that note, Jason, I think that is all that I have for our wonderful folks at home. So what do you have for all of us here?
What do I have? We have a great guest back in the green room who co-wrote Misery Loves Comedy, which I fell in love with this show. I didn't want to turn it off, but I thought, hey, we get to talk to a co-writer for that. Also, this is the author of a book that I need right now called The Comic Toolbox: How to Be Funny Even If You're Not. And that's just the tip of the iceberg for his accomplishments. Please give it up. Look at this.
Absolutely. It's all right here on his website.
Yeah, not to mention the numerous screenplays he's written.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're so excited to talk to him, and I'm just gonna say right now, I'm gonna be popping up his website throughout the show. Run, do not walk. This guy has written some really fantastic stuff, and we're excited to dive in with all of this. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, please welcome John Vorhaus.
Oh, I get applause too. That's completely awesome.
Yeah, you well earned.
Thank you very much.
John,
it's great to be with you guys. Here. No, I'm already having more fun than I can stand, or should be allowed to have. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah. I don't even know where to begin. Let's start at the beginning.
Oh, can I give you a suggestion? I've been just invented this game and I've been dying to play it. And since you don't know where to begin, I'm gonna pop it to you. I've been a professional for 40 years or so. What I propose is that you name a year of the last 40 years, and I'll just tune into where I was. And I'm sure that I'll have something interesting to share about the tragedy and the comedy of that moment and some takeaway lessons. So let's try it, shall we?
I love that.
I love it. Okay, do you want to start or am I going to start, Jason?
You know what, Justin? You've done so much work for this. Why don't you start?
Okay. I will start just because I love doing this as the young buck usually in the scene. I've been performing professionally for 20 years and throughout music entertainment, and I love to always remind people of the year that I was born. So I'm going to say 1987.
1987. Oh boy, that resonates. I mean, they all resonate, but that one resonates. With this exercise, I'm just going to speak my mind. In 1987, I was making inroads at a television show called Wonder Years. I'm sure you remember it.
Wow.
But
Wow.
But you'll notice it's not on my resume, and I want to tell you why. This is great. I get to do confession. At that time, if you wanted to work in Hollywood as a sitcom writer, what you did was you worked up some story ideas and you went in and pitched. I'm sure you understand this. You can also understand what it's like to be in a room like that where you're surrounded by writers who are on staff. And at that time, I was a lowly freelancer. You go in, you make your pitch, you do the best you can. I went in and did something which is pretty unusual, and that is I sold an idea in the room. And the idea was that the kids I don't know, Kevin, that was his name. It didn't really matter what the story was, but it was really emotionally resonant. It's nostalgia for when he was 5 years old. That's what the story was. 12-year-old looking back at being 5. That's what they bought. They paid me to write a story outline, and I wrote 3 or 4 story outlines. And gentlemen, I could never solve the puzzle of the story. I pitched him a story I couldn't write, and much to everyone's chagrin, we just had to axe it at the story level. So I get paid to write for Wonder Years, which is great, but it never went to script. And since it never went to script, actually, I'm misremembering it. It went to script, but they didn't accept the script. They said, we don't want to do this episode after all. And the reason that I'm talking about it is not to bring everybody down, but rather to point out that that was an emotional and a professional blow that I had to absorb. And it taught me a lot about how to be a better professional and also how to have better emotional management. It taught me that I didn't yet know everything I needed to know about being a writer if I wanted to succeed at higher levels. So there was a lot that I took away from it. But anyway, that's what you get when you pop the lid on 1987.
And look at all you've accomplished since that.
I know, huh? It's amazing.
Wow.
I know. And my takeaway from this, actually, I was just reflecting on this. I'm working on a new book called The Little Book of Stand-Up, where I look at stand-up comedy through my filter. I think it's going to be a good one. But one of the things that I pointed out was I'm older. And I imagine that most of my young audience will be much younger than me, like young people, 20-year-olds. And the idea that I love to communicate is you won't believe how long your life is going to be, and you won't believe how much accomplishment and achievement awaits you if you do nothing more than the only thing you want to do anyhow, which is practice your craft. And so I'm in awe and I'm humbled when I look back and I see dozens of books and screenplays, and not to mention traveling and teaching writers all over the world. I've done a hell of a lot. So you might say that if life is an amusement park, I'm certainly getting my money's worth out of my go.
I love
That's
it.
awesome.
I know. I want to applaud again. I want to applaud again.
My year to bring up, the year I was born, you were. It's over 40 years ago. That was 1971.
Bring it on. I can speak to.
You can do 71.
I can speak to 1971. I can speak all the way back to. Well, I was born in 1955. So if you ask me 1955, I say don't remember.
Before you answer me,
don't remember. 1957. Don't remember.
Yeah. What was your earliest memory?
1959, Afraid of Tornadoes.
Logical Fear. I still have
that. Yeah. But 1971, let's time travel because pre-conscious, I'm not that interesting. By 1971, I was sufficiently messed up to be, interesting, worth looking at. I will be in suburban Virginia. I'm going to high school in Langley, Virginia, and just down the road from the CIA, as it happens. And I am attending school in a place that is identified in the Wall Street Journal as the single most drug-infested high school in suburban America. And I saw none of it. And so the real problem for me in 1971 is I wanted to be ahead. I wanted to be a freak. I wanted to be free. But in 1971, I was a high school student with a lot of go to college, go to graduate school, be a professional programming, kind of holding me down and limiting what I thought I might be able to do. So if you can fast forward from 1971 to, well, by 1985, I was completely free. I had gone through university, had a straight job in advertising as a copywriter, and blew that up and set myself free in life. So I would say in 1971, I knew what I wanted, but just didn't know how to get there. But as the years passed, I found my way to it.
You nailed it. You nailed your 71 story.
That's what I'm here for. That's 2 years down and 63 more to go, John.
We have a few years from the audience.
We're going to be here all night.
Big Gay Nick.
It's an interesting... It's an interesting way of reflecting on a life if you think about it. This isn't a game that just I can play. Yeah. Here's value in it. If you say to yourself, I want to explore a year random, 1983, whatever it is, the mere mention of the year will cause an emotional reaction within you. You will feel it more than remember it. And the trick of the game, or the value in the game, is understanding what that feeling is and then bringing it up to your present mind where you can look at it and think about it and evaluate it, not judge it. Don't say, oh, I was in a bad place then, I'm in a better place now. That's not really where it's at. But it's just, that's who I was then. That's what I understood about myself. That's what I was doing. That's how I was being impacted. Now that I reflect on it, I can make interesting connections. Like I can look at that guy in 1971 who was more uptight than was good for him. And I can ask myself, where now today am I more uptight than is good for me? And I can work in those spaces to free myself even more. Another
I love
blow.
that.
Blow. Oh, bloviate. I'm bloviating. That's what I'm doing. I love that word, and I am
What a
really
great
doing.
vocabulary. Big A Nick is asking 1983.
Yeah.
Oh, 1983. That was a time of real transition for me. I was, let's see, let me do the math. I was 28 years old. I was, this is just going to sound so completely out of left field when I say it. I was singing and playing guitar as a folk singer on the coffee house and college circuit of New England. And I did that for about 5 years between 1980 and 1985. And I would say around about 1983, I was starting to discover that there were two things I couldn't do very well: sing and play guitar. So it was
You are a man of many
starting,
faces.
it was starting to dawn on me that I might need to think about another career, but I wasn't done with it yet. So by 1983, I was actually laying the groundwork for a self-produced record album that I made in 1984. I was writing a bunch of songs. I was getting as good as I was going to get. My best songs are always the funniest ones, as you might imagine, but there were some others that had some resonance, but I couldn't pull it off. I didn't have the life experience. I didn't have the freedom from insecurity. But I did have enough drive to say, I want to make an album and nobody's going to stop me. And when I made that album, the transformational experience for me was I came out of that saying, now I can call myself an artist. I am literally a recording artist. So anytime I meet somebody and they say, are you legitimately a writer? Are you legitimately a creative person? From that point forward, I never had to worry about it. I had made myself legitimate in my own eyes, even though I was pursuing an art form, singer-songwritering, that I ultimately had to set aside in favor of situation comedy. If you ask me another year, maybe 1985, I will explain to you how I made that transition.
Okay, well, then we're going to start with 85, and I got 2 more years to run by you.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make this follow-up point.
I love this.
In 1985, I was in Boston being a singer-songwriter and knowing that I had come to the end of that road. And I knew that my next move at that point was to a bigger playfield. Had to be New York or Los Angeles. Couldn't stay where I was. And it also had to be a different thing. I couldn't go forward as a singer-songwriter. I literally had to set the guitar aside. It wasn't going to be New York because I was done with winter at that point. But I made myself a deal. I said to myself, if you give yourself the freedom, the permission to move from Boston to Los Angeles, back to Los Angeles. I grew up in California. But you give yourself the freedom to move back and the desire to aspire. You're going to have a career. Then you're going to be serious about it. You're going to be a bigger writer than you are right now. That is, you're not just going to settle for writing songs. You're going to try to write scripts. In other words, I challenged myself to level up. I wanted to move, and in order to move successfully, I made myself the deal that I would only move if I strove to and chose to level up. So that's what I did. That was the point I wanted to make. Because you can extract from this. Like, let's say there's somebody out there who wants to quit their job. A lot of people in that circumstance, they have a creative desire. They have a job, maybe they need it, maybe they don't need it. Let's just say right now that they don't necessarily have to hold on to it. But they're not going to feel good about themselves if they let it go too lightly. So this idea of making a deal with yourself, okay, I'm going to let the job go. I really want to do that, but only if I'm true to my desire to have a practice of writing or a practice of stand-up or practice of art, whatever. If I'm not going to be as good as the game, if I'm not going to live up to the promise that I make to myself, meet the goals that I set for myself, then I'm not ready to quit my job. But when I feel I am ready to meet that commitment to myself, then I can quit my job with a little more fearlessness, knowing that I've thought through the decision and only taken the next step when I feel I have earned it, in a sense, and not in a financial sense, but in a I'm a self-driven creative practitioner sense. Next year.
Wow, I'm kind of in awe by your self-help through the years story.
Can I tell you what a blessing it is for me to have this opportunity to share in this way? This is blowing my mind. I haven't done this very much.
It's
I'm
wonderful.
I'm doing it a fair amount now. I feel like I'm really getting hooked on it. I mean, forget about can you find an audience? Can you make it pay? Can you what is it? Monetize my narcissism. That's a funny line. I'm trying to think past that, because really what you're giving me is the opportunity to investigate my past in the present in a way I can't do it on my own. Because if I sit down and do this on my own, it's going to be a different outcome. That's all. So I'm having a good time. I'm having a great time. This is really wonderful. Transcendent.
Trenton in New Jersey is asking for 2006. A little more recent.
That was a good year.
Okay, so it's not as hard to remember.
Well, I was about 1975 was a good year too, but 2006 was a really good year. And boy, when I tell you what I was doing then, this is going to sound like it's made up. It's going to sound so far around the corner and down the street, you're not going to believe it. But this is a true fact. I almost can't voice it. You will not believe it's true, but it is true. In 2006, I spent 6 weeks, all expenses paid plus big salary, staying at the Bellagio in Las Vegas as a blogger and Sirius XM radio commentator, covering the World Series of Poker live from beginning to end. That's how I spent my summer vacation.
Very, very
Goodness
nice.
gracious.
In the context, it makes sense. I wrote 10 books on poker during the first decade of the 21st century, more or less 10 books. I was very much immersed in that industry at the time. I love poker. I'm not a very good poker player myself. That's what I say. But but I had discovered a formula that really worked for me, which was if there's something I'm passionate about, like poker, and I want to learn more about it, I just find someone to pay me to teach it. And I went right to a poker magazine in the middle of the 1980s, and I said, hey, I love poker. I don't know anything about it, but I'm going to learn. And while I learn, I want to write about it. And they said, you're signed. We'll give you a column. I've read it for 20 years. First it was called Notes from the Nervous Breakdown Lane, and later it was Killer Poker. And when it translated into Killer Poker and then the boom hit, I went to my agent and I said, I think I can sell a Killer Poker book in this market. He said, and I will never forget, he said, I can't sell one book, but I know I can sell 3. I said, what do you mean? He said, I got a buyer for a poker book series, and Killer Poker lines up perfectly as a series. We'll do it as a series. I said, we won't do it as a series. I can barely think about writing one book about poker, much less 3.
He said, no, though.
No, he said, no, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And he was right. He said, you'll find more to write about. And he was right. I wrote Killer Poker Online, and the Killer Poker Hold'em Handbook. And those went so well that we made another 3-book deal. Wow. And I ended up writing Killer Poker Online 2, which was the most successful in the series, Killer Poker No Limit, Killer Poker Shorthanded, that was co-authored. Yeah, and then the final project for that group was my first poker novel, which let me transition into writing novels, which is what I really wanted to do at the time. So 2006, very fruitful year in the context of a very fruitful decade.
Wow, yeah. In 2006, I was top salesperson at the New York Sports Club while weighing 450 pounds. So this is what else was going on in the world where you were doing the World Series of Poker.
Yeah.
There's a large man running the sports club in New York.
No, selling the sports club in New York.
Selling, that's what I meant. I was still running Rascals Comedy Club in 2006. I was living the dream too for a little bit there.
Is that right?
Yes. Not quite the World Series of Poker, but I had a comedy club in a hotel, and I was single, and it was a beautiful time.
Well, I'm glad you have that experience to cherish.
Well, thank you
I
very
mean,
much.
I mean, I tell you who my heart goes out to right now. And I mean, I love that I've had an exciting life, and I'm thrilled that other people find it exciting. It's filled with a lot of high points, you know, the usual share of low points too. But my heart goes out to people whose life experience is not tracking like that, who can't, wherever they are currently, can't look back and say, I've already been enjoying this ride I'm on. I think there are plenty of people who are just flat suffering in their present without a lot of pleasure or high points in their past to draw upon as a resource. And them, I would say, look ahead and set the goal of creating high point experiences for yourself. Because if you don't have a track record of them, that doesn't mean you can't start building a track record now in super small steps. So I'm going to go ahead.
That's such a great way of looking at things, because maybe it's the Jew in me that says my life is a series of disasters. But I mean, when I said 2006 was a great year, I have done you just put it in my head that I've done a lot of cool things throughout my life, and I seem to pick out the negative. I don't know if it's embedded into me.
In one of my books, and I'm damned if I can remember which one now, I propose that you, the reader, write yourself a whole life resume. Not the jobs you've held, but the things in your life that have made your life meaningful. And the value in this exercise, it really does allow you to and challenge you to focus on all the good things that have happened in your life. And you start to rattle them off and you realize, okay, maybe these aren't world shakers by other people's standards, but I did win the regional sports championship in Floby ball or whatever it was in 1986. And that was a big deal. I did marry the person I loved, and I'm aware of that. And I did quit a miserable job, and I did hold a good job. And just to have a positive record of your past on hand is a great antidote to the blues that afflict everybody, but especially people who are struggling down creative paths. Here's another way of saying the same thing. When my writing isn't working, one of my surefire strategies for fixing it is to go back and read something that I did write that I know works, because it reminds me that I do have writing mojo, and that this feeling I have right now that it's not working out, it's transitory and it'll pass. The evidence is there. But the evidence isn't available to you if you don't gather it. So that's how to be happy in the past, present, and future, according to this guy here.
Wow. John, I'm loving you right now. You're like a therapist.
People say that.
The unintentional therapist. The John Vorhaus story.
Yeah, really. Just think about what it'll be like when this goes live. I mean, I'm joking.
Wait, it's not live now?
People are commenting, so yes. You scared me for a minute, Justin.
That's only happened a couple of times on this show where we've gotten so engrossed with the conversation. Like, wait, we're supposed to do this for an audience, right?
Hit record.
All right, the first year I set foot on stage at Caroline's to do comedy for the first time ever was 1998. What was 1998 like for you? Did I hit a year you don't remember?
No, I remember it. I'm just dialing it in, just making sure I know where I'm at. It's kind of do you know what a pudding stone is? A pudding stone is a big boulder with lots of other little rocks in it. It's all held together. It's mud, essentially, with rocks in it. Anyway, it was kind of a pudding stone year for me, which is, by which I mean I was doing a lot of different things. I was certainly traveling and teaching in Europe at the time, and I was certainly trying to get gigs, writing hour-long episodes in Hollywood. But the standout engagement at the time actually took place in Nicaragua. This is another kind of, oh, wow, I did not see that coming. Around about that time, I was recruited to help a social action group in Nicaragua make a comedy drama half-hour show, TV show, that would, as I like to put it, teach the young people of Nicaragua to think for themselves and practice safe sex. It was social modeling, positive modeling. The constituent audience was poor people, young people, gay people, trans people, uh, um, economically deprived, just the downtrodden of Nicaragua who are not in short supply. And the idea of the show was we're going to give them a mirror to hold up to themselves where they can look at the people on screen and say those people are just like me, except they're a little more willing to talk about their problems and confront them more directly. And so we were hoping that the audience would understand that there's value in talking about your problems and confronting them more directly. Because this was a social action show funded by non-governmental money, it found its way into the marketplace without any commercial interference, which meant that it could really speak the truth it wanted to speak and deliver the goods that it wanted to deliver. I was indispensable to the project in that I knew how to make a story work and how to turn a story into a script. So I went there off and on in those years to take my writing staff and advance them to the next level of development. I was in and out of Nicaragua 8 or 10 times over the course of those years. And then I went back 10 years later and made another show. This particular part of my background, going to Nicaragua and helping poor people, young people, gay people get a break, that's my ticket to heaven. When I'm thinking about, have I made my life worthwhile? There are a lot of reasons I can say yes, but I always go to that one first and say, that's really where I was operating at the perfect intersection of my passion and my purpose. My passion being my desire to write and to teach writers, and my purpose being to use my mojo, such as it is, to help some people be better off. So, 1998.
I'm speechless. John, a man crushing on you.
Can you imagine? I'll put it to you this way. In the movie version of this moment, in 5 minutes from now, we're going to discover that this guy has been making all of this up as he went along. Can you imagine how
Oh my God, I would feel I've been duped.
that would land?
Wow,
Because then you'd have to shift from, wow, this guy's really done a lot of interesting stuff, to, wow, this guy has a really facile imagination.
Oh my God, you're
Turns out
really
it's-
Walter Mitty.
Yes.
Yeah, really. Yes, I'm secretly Walter Mitty. Maybe
It's not even John
Oh.
Vorhaus. It's John Vorhans the whole
beforehand.
time.
Exactly.
So John Vorhaus made that great documentary, remember?
That's right.
Yes,
Right,
I
go with
remember.
it.
Misery Loves Caramel. What was it called? Sorry, next time I play this game, I'm going to play a little differently. I'm going to throw in a lie and see if it's detected. I'm just going
Ooh.
I'm just going to say something like, the third year they ask about, I'm going to make up some bullshit, see if I can sell it.
Oh, I love it. I
Oh
love it.
no, I'm not. I'm telling you guys that I'm doing it next time because I want you to know for sure I'm not doing it today. You can trust
appreciate
me
that.
because I'm a trustworthy liar.
That's true. We haven't been talking long enough that I figured out your tell. So
Good poker reference.
Yeah, it is. It is.
so okay. So Jason gave you the first year that he performed. I'll give you the first year that I did my first professional performance. It was 2001, and I was booked for my first international tour. I was touring between Germany and France for 2 weeks, and that was when I had my opportunity to sing as a soloist at the Cathedral Notre Dame in Paris at the ripe old age of 13.
Wow. And I've just
Yeah,
made a cognitive breakthrough. I just discovered that I was wrong. I thought your name was Justin Gonzalez Tenor.
No, I am a tenor. I am a tenor.
I just figured that out. Your last name was Tenor. Oh, what an interesting name, Justin Gonzalez Tenor. Mwah.
It
So
was meant
you were-
to be.
So forget about my 2001. What was that like for you? Were you were only 13, so you weren't old enough to drink officially, but I can't imagine you passed through Germany or France
Well,
without.
that's the interesting thing is I remember trying to be very, very good and trying not to drink. And I remember going into a little corner store in Saarbrücken, Germany, this beautiful little town, and I wanted to purchase like a local version of a soda pop. And so I saw this silver can that had lemons and limes, and I'm like, oh, it's probably their version of Sprite. I was so wrong because as soon as I open it up, it is lemon and lime with vodka.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Yeah.
And they sold
In
it
a
to
corner
you?
store?
Well, here's the other thing also that I should mention. I always give this as kind of the benchmark of to understand how big I was when I was young. My mother always said at my 8th month growth spurt, I kept spurting. Um, I
Oh wow.
remember.
There's an image.
Yeah, I remember going to my new school in 5th grade, and getting into line with all the other kids in the 5th grade class, and everyone came up to my shoulder. I was 5'9" at 9 years old.
Wow.
So I've always been someone who has been larger than life in my existence, and so I figured it was probably a no-brainer that I should have been on stage. I thought I was going to be a sideshow act, but it turns out that I was going to be an opera singer, and then things changed, and but 13 years old, being in Paris, singing in Notre Dame, I remember the conductor cutting off the choir and just allowing our voices to just reverberate in the space. And again, being 13, I was a very poetic and well, I was lonely, is what it was. I was lonely. I was this freakishly tall kid. I loved music. I was very passionate. I was very tuned into my emotions. So I didn't have I wasn't one of those popular hip kids, but I could speak amongst all of the cliques. So I was this kind of chameleon. But I remember being in that space and hearing our voices rolling and hearing my voice roll and just thinking of all of the people for the hundreds of years before me whose voices are still rolling through this space, and I'm with them. And in my shows, I say that was the moment that I realized that I no longer had a decision, that it was made for me, that this was what I had to do for the rest of my life. I had to share these stories with people. I had to share these existence. I had to share this ability that I've been given, because in some little way, everyone in that space left a little bit better because of what we did that day. And if I have that power to do 3 minutes at a time, then it's my power to do it for as long as I have breath in my lungs. And that was 13 years old in 2001 for me.
Wow, when I was 13, I discovered pro wrestling and masturbation. So,
And did you decide you needed to share those passions with the world as well?
Well, we're gonna let that pass.
Well, Justin, I'll say this: I would recommend my new book, Little Book of Stand Up, to you, but I don't think you're going to get anything out of it that you don't already know, because what you just said, exploit your power, use your power for good as you see fit, is kind of the core idea of the book. So you're already there with that. The rest will be just, yeah, man, I'm already there with that.
We can always learn.
Jason, I can tell you a wrestling story.
You have a wrestling story.
It's just a quick sidebar. 1995 or so, I was working in Denver, Colorado for a company called Zing, which intended to make television an interactive experience by putting a set-top box on top of your TV and giving you a controller so you could play games. And I was writing trivia questions for the World Wrestling Federation, the WWF, to be text for the game. The idea was a disaster. It was way ahead of its time, and it was probably never a good idea in the first place. But it cost a grand sum of money, and I got my share. And the point of the story is, as a writer, by that time I already had the clear sense: never leave money lying on the table. If there's a job to be done that involves me using my brain and turning the output of my brain, not my body, because I'm not good with, shoveling, but if I can turn the contents of my brain into money, I'm going to go after it. I'm going to go after it hard, and I'm going to go after it completely unapologetically. And that's a path that I really recommend for people. If you're the kind of, let's say, as a stand-up comic, you have your main sources of small income, let's say, clubs, whatever you're doing, but somebody comes along and says, I need you to write I need you to write the backstory for my restaurant. The restaurant is called Aunt Mabel's, and there's really no Aunt Mabel, and we just need somebody to tell us who Aunt Mabel is. You might have the feeling in your mind, well, I'm a comic. I know what I'm doing there, but I don't know the first thing about creating a character's backstory. I don't know the first thing about this kind of branding. This is outside of my experience, so I'm not going to do it. That's a fatal mistake. Follow this path instead. This is outside my experience, so I can't wait to do it. That's what gets you into interesting and tricky and growth-driven situations. It also helps you earn as a writer or a comedian, whatever your practice is. And it also gives you new tools that you can turn around and use for other things in other ways that you haven't even imagined yet. So that's that bit of bloviating.
That's the perfect way. And plus, it's fun to come up with a backstory. You get to
Plus,
really
it's
use
fun.
your imagination. Absolutely.
It's hugely fun. In 2016, I was in Shanghai creating the backstory for the Dutch Milkmaid brand of condensed milk. It was a product being introduced in southern China, and I was brought in as an expert in corporate mascot development. Do I have a degree in corporate mascot development? I never even heard the words until I started presenting my.
Yeah, I didn't know that
I didn't know
existed.
you know what? It probably doesn't. I might have given it that name. I mean, because after all, at some point it must be. And there you go. At some point it must be a. I'm going to have to define myself for them. They reached out to me. I had worked with colleagues of theirs in another part of the world doing something vaguely related, and they said, "Can you help us problem solve this? Can you come in and spend a week with our creative development team and figure out what this Dutch Milkmaid story is?" And what we got to was I'm embarrassed to say the problem was so easily solved that once I knew the answer, I just had to stall for the rest of the week. because here's the part you don't know. And this is what thrills me about the life I've gotten to live. I've learned the most amazing esoteric pieces of information. You know that China has had a one-child policy, right? Mm-hmm. So that meant that a lot of families in the 90s had single children. They grew up without siblings, without younger siblings especially. When those people reached the age where they could be mothers, they weren't really tuned into the idea of motherhood. They didn't really want to do it. They didn't feel good about it, didn't have experience of nurturing, and really seemed like a lot of work to them. It is, of course. But they want to believe that it's easy. It's hard, but they want to believe that it's easy. So the reality is it's hard, and the cherished belief is it's easy. Now here comes our Dutch milkmaid, and what we're going to do is we're going to give her magic like Mary Poppins, so that she comes into a situation that's tough for the mom. The kid's acting out, won't settle down, having a tantrum, whatever. Tough situation for her mom. Here comes the Dutch milkmaid, throws a little magic around, lands a joke or two because she's a self-deprecating character, because apparently I think that's part of the package, and communicates to the mom. And then a magic happens, and the solution, the problem is magically solved. Communicates to the mother, we know this isn't really like it, but we know you wish it were. So here's a little tiny piece of fantasy that you can enjoy. And across that bridge of tiny piece of fantasy you can enjoy, that's where the brand allegiance is built. So say I, as a completely self-described expert. I know,
Amazing.
huh?
Amazing.
I know.
Wow.
I know. If you can't be right, be loud. If you're loud enough,
you're playing improv games by yourself and being successful at it.
Very much so, I would say. Very much so in settings like that. Because in a writing workshop, there's always two goals. The headline goal is, let's fix the problem we're here to solve. Whether it's come up with an idea for a sitcom or, brand condensed milk or anything else you can think of. One thing we're thinking about is let's solve the problem. But the other thing we're thinking about is let's have a good process. Let's figure out how we can interact with each other in a way that is effective, pleasant, moves us toward our goals healthfully. So when I'm doing this kind of work, I'm not only solving the client's problem, I'm also impacting or trying to impact the working environment so that it can continue to solve that same kind of problem effectively. It's kind of a teach a man to fish thing, but it's really more about you always have a choice to serve your ego or serve the work. And if you make the choice to serve the work And if the people around you make the same choice, doing that one thing will make the work much more effective and the process of doing the work much more pleasant, because nobody is engaged in the toxic and irrelevant and process and progress stopping question of how am I doing on the level of ego. So that's what I try to deliver when I deliver the goods overseas or here in my own backyard.
Wow.
Well, did you have, when you started all this, did you have a goal? Like, I mean, did you want to be famous, or did you just want to do something? Because you strike me as someone who just wanted to be creative and make a living at it, more so than.
When I was 13, I had a very clear sense that I wanted to be big in the world. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew that I had that sense. I can remember it from then. And I remember it because I addressed it concretely in my early 20s, because I was suffering a lot under the weight of expectation that 13-year-old had put on me. Like, I'm 20 years old and I'm not big in the world, and my 13-year-old had the expectation that I would be. Now I feel bad. That's where I was at. So what I did was I looked back at that 13-year-old and I said, well, that kid had a 13-year-old's perspective on the world. He knew what a 13-year-old knows, and he can't be held responsible for being right or wrong. He can be whatever he wants in that space. But now that I'm 20, 25, whatever, I don't have to meet the expectations of someone whose understanding of the world wasn't as good as my current understanding is. And that's when I started to understand that I liked creating, I liked achieving. I love the spotlight. I really do. I love sharing, helping, teaching, making people laugh. No question about that. But I was determined to find a way to feel good about myself that didn't involve being big and famous, because it looked like that wasn't going to happen. And that's when I said to myself, I'm going to validate from within. I'm going to do things that are important to me. I'm going to try to make a difference where I can, but I'm going to let go of the expectation that my future should arrive in any particular way, shape, or form. And instead, I'll just let my future arrive as it arrives. And with that, I was able to really lay a lot of burden aside. And I could be much more playful in my choices and much more exploratory in everything that I was doing. It was clear to me that I wasn't as good a writer as I was a teacher at a time when I had to make a choice. And I chose to embrace teaching because I was so good at it, but not without a certain amount of trepidation. Because I thought, if I go down this road where I'm writing and teaching, I'm never going to stop writing, but I am going to be in between. It seems like I'm actually kind of closing the door on the road to fame, because otherwise I'm just going to stay focused, head down over sitcom, eyes on the prize, try and work my way up through that, even though I'm not doing it as well as I want to. And honestly, I'm not really being that happy in the environments I'm finding myself in. But meanwhile, over here, there's this teaching thing, and it's drawing me so hard, and I'm doing such good work, and people are getting a lot out of it. And now all of a sudden I can write a book about it, and that opens up the door to new opportunities. That's when I realized something was gained, something was lost, and it was going to be that way. And I couldn't know what the future was going to bring, but the best thing I could do was ask myself, what's going to make me happy in the now, and try to follow my instinct in that area, in that frame. I arrived at the idea, those who can do both, and that was real liberating to me, because then I could set up a rhythm where I'm going to learn about something, then I'm going to do that thing, then I'm going to learn more about it, then I'm going to do more of that. And that going back and forth between writing and teaching, that's really been the defining algorithm of my professional career, with a lot of willingness to explore new things as they presented themselves to me. But let's look at it this way. I said to myself, it's okay to go off in all directions at once. Wherever you go, it'll be fine. But that meant that I went down some roads not as far as I might. It meant that I abandoned some roads that I might have been more fruitful with. It meant that I spread my energy in a lot of different places, in a lot of different ways. So it's not unexpected that I wouldn't arrive at fame and glory as the specific destination, because I never committed myself to making that my destination. Some could argue that I was building a rationalization around a paradigm of failure. Like if this guy wasn't all that good in situation comedy, maybe he bailed on a career, and all this talk about calling and higher purpose is really just a lot of baffle gab, self defensive, like I said, rationalization. I can tell you what, through shed light on that. Can I use a curse word? Got to know whether I can.
Sure.
Late 90s. By the late 90s, I was traveling and teaching in Europe every summer for about 6 or 8 weeks. It was great. All over Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Norway. Spent a lot of time in a lot of countries, did a lot of really cool things. One day I was in Rome, Italy, teaching a writing workshop, comic toolbox masterclass. And at the end, when Q&A came, somebody asked a question, really, really scared, but said, with respect, I've learned a lot from you here today. You seem like a really talented guy. With all due respect, why aren't you in Hollywood? And I said to him, just completely extemporaneously, though of course I've dined out on the story ever since, I said to him, if a friend of mine from Hollywood asked me that question right now, this would be my response. Fuck you, I'm in Rome. So I haven't gotten everything I wanted out of the jar labeled fame and glory. I'm willing to accept more, but I'm reluctant to pursue more, because what if it goes wrong? What if I get public recognition that doesn't suit me and I lose my private life? I don't think it's going to happen. I'll tell you why. In fact, I know why. Because I'm such a rarefied taste. I mean, listen to what I've been blathering on about for the last hour. Do you think a mass market is going to sit still for this? You have to be on a certain narrow spectrum of interest to be really passionately interested in picking up what I'm putting down.
People have been listening consistently, though.
It's very true. We've had
That's great. That's great.
And you've acquired some new fans for sure.
I hope so. I'm thrilled to hear that. That's what I'm here for. So as long as they just don't make my life inconvenient by giving me too much fame and glory, we'll all be okay.
No, you don't. I could tell you. I mean, you claim to be narcissistic, as we all are, but you don't give off that vibe at all. You give off more of an impression of you like to be creative and rewarding at the same time. That's kind of what I'm getting from you.
If you have self-acceptance, if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, "You're okay, dude," you're in command, you're in control. If you have that attitude about yourself, like, I don't have to apologize for myself. I don't have to explain myself away. I don't have to pretend to be anything other than I am. If you have that attitude, then you have a lot of freedom to operate in self-mocking spaces. Like, you can call yourself a narcissist because you're not really a narcissist, but you can use it to make a point. Oh, and this is related to it. I used the phrase earlier, trustworthy liar. And there actually is such a thing as a trustworthy liar, according to me. And you can believe me because I am a self-defined trustworthy liar. But what is a trustworthy liar? A trustworthy liar is someone who will lie to you, tell you he's lying to you, tell you why he's lying to you, and demonstrate how that benefits you.
Sounds like Penn and Teller.
Okay, sure. That's a good way of looking at it. I'll give you an example from my experience. At the time I was working in Nicaragua, I was also writing novels about con artists. And one of the stories my team worked on was a con artist story. And they asked me, "Are you a con artist?" And I said, "I consider myself to be a trustworthy liar. Here's how this works. You're a writer and you have insecurity. And you come to me as your mentor and your head writer. And you ask me, do I have faith in you? Do I think you can do this job that I need you to do? 100% of the time, I will tell you, I have faith in you. And then I'll tell you, I don't know if that faith is justified. We haven't found that out yet. But I do know that if I don't give you my faith when you need it, then you can't advance to the next level. And for the sake of us both reaching our goals, I want you to advance to the next level." So that's me being a trustworthy liar, investing faith on credit, you might say, for the sake of helping somebody else achieve their goal. If you're telling lies to help other people achieve their goal, if you are authentically in service of other people and their goals, then you can get away with a lot of interesting shenanigans that we might file under manipulation strategies. And people will let you get away with it because they know your heart is true. And I would say it's certainly true of me that I have a true heart. I am legitimately in service. And it took me decades to reach that point, by the way. I used to tell a joke. I used to tell it as a joke. People would say to me, "This has been so helpful. Thank you so much." And my joke was, "Oh, don't thank me. I define myself through service." And it was completely ironic and deflective. But the singer John Wesley Harding has a great line, title of a song. He says, "Your jokes will become your reality." And certainly it is true that joke about me being in service has become my reality, just because I realized being in service is a bottomless pit of reward. The more I do it, the more I get out of it. I can't get enough of it. So that's where I'm at with that. Pandemic taught me that too. Before the pandemic, I rarely gave away my services. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying that I'm going to give my services away to you, but I did realize there's a line that I teach from in storytelling. The truth is revealed under pressure. That's how you drive characters through stories. You put them under pressure and make them arrive at an explosive understanding of the truth. So the pandemic was a big pressure put on all of us, and it inspired us or drove us to new understandings and new truths. And for me, one of the truths I arrived at was I really need to give more away. I have more professional bandwidth than I'm using, and people have greater need in this time right now than they did heretofore. So I've got to think more creatively about what I charge for my work, and find a way past. You want to keep a floor under your hourly. You never want to, be at the bottom of the market. Always try and be at the top of the market. But at the same time, make room for people who have legitimate needs and don't have deep pockets. And that was really a fulfilling part of my pandemic experience, because I could do it on Zoom. And that was a revelation too. So all of that.
So I'm just curious, because you had mentioned that you are teaching now. Is that something that you had been doing more through the pandemic because of this new medium?
I did some different things. I haven't yet found, and we can put this out there, I haven't yet found my right home for teaching, but I'm always on the lookout for it. So if you, dear listener, have a proposition in that area that involves you doing all the technical stuff and me just showing up and blathering, then we can make some powerful common cause, because that's what I'm interested in.
I might have something for you that we'll talk about.
Okay, that's right. That's part of the reason I'm here. But to your question, in the early days of the pandemic, I did a series of free writing workshops of the following nature: a 500-word funny letter to COVID-19. My thinking was, everybody is really suffering under COVID-19, and everybody has this really strong need to strike back, to speak back, to answer back to COVID-19. You may be controlling my world, but you're not controlling my mind. You're not controlling my head. And so I helped my students write letters to COVID-19 that gave them a better insight into where their pain points were and to where their surprising number of hidden silver linings lay. That's what I really got out of it, because everybody's letter started out the same. Dear COVID-19, I thought you completely sucked, but after a while I discovered there were really some benefits here. So
I had a great 2020. I really did. It brought out some of the best and most creative aspects of people, including myself, that I didn't even know I was capable of.
I mean, this came out of 2020. The Hi, I'm Jason podcast.
I started playing piano, right. And I did an acting gig in front of Susie Essman on Zoom, which was amazing.
So what you discovered, and what a lot of people discovered, making podcasts, doing open mics, finding other opportunities to share their voice, that the barrier to entry is no more or less than saying yes. The minute you say to yourself, I'm going to do a podcast, nothing stops you. There is no, wait, you're not qualified. There's no, you don't have the technical tools because you got a computer, if you have a computer, that is. But the real hurdle is seeing yourself as someone who can do that thing, rather than seeing yourself as someone who only wants to do that thing. That's turning on a light. That's when change takes place. My earliest experience of that I can identify took place the night before I left for my post-college graduate trip to Europe, backpacking around Europe, like everybody in my generation did. And I lay in bed that night, and I had an idea for a song, and I had never written a song before. And I had two thoughts back to back. The first thought was, this is a fun idea for a song. I'll try to remember to write it down in the morning. And the second thought immediately right behind it was, you'll never remember to write it down in the morning, and you won't have time. If you want to write it now. And I thought, well, I'm not a songwriter, but I have an idea. Let me execute. And in the 10 or 15 minutes it took me to write that lyric, didn't even have a melody. It was a talking blues, didn't need a melody. But in the time it took me to write that, I transformed myself from wannabe lyricist or songwriter or poet to actually I am doing that thing. And so when I went to Europe, instead of spending my time just walking around with my head in the clouds, I spent all my time walking around making up songs. Didn't know the first thing about singing, playing guitar. I hadn't learned music yet, but I could compose a tune and attach it to some lyrics and sing it often enough to memorize it. And that was really the beginning of my authentic creative practice. So took myself from no to yes in a moment, and my life changed.
All about the yes and.
Yes, and indeed. And I hate to do this, gents, but I'm looking at the clock, and it is sadly that time. Now, we can continue to talk after we say goodbye to the audience, which I hope that you're game for, John.
We're going to the after party, and you're not.
That's absolutely it. Because I'll tell you, you know what, John? I feel like we could do a series just hanging out with you. And, this has been so much fun. I love that. Yes, a different decade since
decade every series.
I mean,
that excites me. I'm ready to say yes to that now. That excites me so hard.
Yeah, this has been so much fun. And
you can I interrupt for one moment, because you really I needed you today, John. This interview was phenomenal. As I was saying, I wasn't even joking. I lost a friend today. I lost another friend a week ago, and they're both such life forces, both such like good, strong personalities, good people. And I never got to tell them that. I just always took, I mean, they knew I appreciated their friendship, but I feel like I want to tell both of you, because I'm a little emotional today, but not to Liberace myself up right now, but just you guys are both incredible life forces. You're both such amazing people who I just want you to know I just needed to talk to you guys today, and I just found this so inspirational. And I just want to thank you.
It wasn't clear to me in that moment, and I'm saying this with all seriousness and no irony in any sense. It wasn't clear to me just now, Jason, whether you were talking to me, John Vorhaus, and him, Justin Gonzalez Tenor. Sorry for the callback. Or you were talking to your dear departed friends.
I was talking to you guys because I feel like I just want to let people know how, when they do something important or special or interesting, I want to let them know that I appreciate it. Maybe this won't last, but it's just, as cornball as I sound. But.
No, you don't sound cornball to me, but I live in a cornball universe that says things like cherish the moment you're in. And and I proudly stand by my, I'm going to make up a word here. I'm not sure which it's going to be. Cornballishness, cornballification. There are a lot of possibilities. I'll sort through them later. Before we leave, let me please just speak to your audience and say, you guys, you see my name. If you have my name, you have everything you need to reach me and my works. You can go to my website, johnvorhaus.com. You can go to my Amazon author page and search. Well, you can go to Amazon, search John Vorhaus, find all that stuff. I also do art, by the way. Et voila. And you can get.
I was going to say your backdrop is great. Is it like green screen or that's real?
It's real. Oh my God. Real baby. Awesome. Real baby. I love it. My design, somebody else's fabrication, but that's what I do. I do the design. Anyway, you can find my artwork at Redbubble, again, with just my name. And then finally, on this page here, or one very much like it, you will find a contact link. And guys, ladies, gentlemen, people in the universe, if you want to reach out to me, raise a question, raise an issue, just say hi, I invite you to. I'm here for that contact, and I will make my offer concrete by saying, if there's something you think I can help you with, I will help you in any way I can to the limit of my ability, so long as it doesn't take more than 5 minutes and I don't have to leave my desk. It turns out there's a crap load I can accomplish in 5 minutes sitting at my desk, and it would be my pleasure to serve you in that way.
Wow.
So
my friends, run, do not walk. Go to johnvorhaus.com. On all things wonderful, you can find John Vorhaus. He has been a pleasure to talk with today, and I echo Jason's sentiment. It's amazing sometimes you don't realize what you need until you're in the midst of it. And we really, I think, not just Jason and I, but I'm sure our listeners really needed a little bit of John Vorhaus today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Go sports team.
That's my favorite line.
And on that note, let's say goodnight, Jason.
Good night, everyone. How you thought I was going there? You thought I wasn't gonna fall for that hack crap. All right. Good night, Jason.